Sometime in 2019, the city of Wuhan, China informed the world that,
Hey, some of our citizens have been infected with a virus that we weren't prepared for. We'll be fine though, no worries.
they locked down the city and all was good for a while. Early 2020, China informs the world,
So we might have had our first death.
and then in January, the virus ships out of China and appears in Thailand.
Hey, China? What's that in my territory? Oh my god!
Country, some hospitals bracing for the worst.
Catch flights home ahead of a U.S.-imposed ban.
That virus was known as SARS-CoV-2, but you know it better as COVID-19. Spreading throughout the world, it was declared a public health emergency by the World Health Organization in January of 2020, and then declared a pandemic in March, which sent most of the world into lockdown. So, most of us are now stuck inside. A majority of events canceled. Vacations also canceled. School, work, canceled. All thrown online. What they told us is that all you could really do was be inside 99.9% of the time and you would be fine. Wear a mask when you go out for groceries and that was it. Nothing else you could really do. In the midst of this pandemic, we now found ourselves gravitated to our electronics for entertainment unlike ever before. But now is for a different reason. What else could you really do? Stare at the wall?
I mean, it's alright. I mean, like, it's not that bad.
So we filled the void of loneliness and boredom with one specific group of people. A group of people who have been refining their skills online for years, who finally got their time to shine. Many people stuck inside decided to do something with their lives online because just like us, they had nothing else to do, and they would grow fan bases beyond their wildest dreams. Hi, I'm Meta64, and this pandemic that we just went through really changed content creation, both how it's consumed and how it's made. And I think this is a discussion we should have. The world wasn't completely screwed upon the discovery of COVID. We had already developed technologies to continue with school and work, so while the cog was stopped for a little bit, we were able to quickly get it running again, in a somewhat limping form. But many other industries were thriving during this time, especially in the online world. Because if there's something we all rely on a little too much, it's the internet. So, many social media websites and applications began to report a huge boost in traffic and usage, especially video sharing and streaming sites. The most notable two, of course, being YouTube and Twitch. The two have been dominating the video sharing and streaming scene for years, and were many people's go-to for independent content made by people in their bedrooms.
Wait, in their bedrooms?
I'm stuck in my bedroom right now.
What's stopping me from doing the same?
Most of the population said.
I could probably be as famous as them one day.
For some, it was a matter of becoming famous during a time when people needed people to watch. For others, it was a way to escape the world outside. For others, it was a way to be someone they never thought they could be before. For many more, it was a way to climb out of a dark place that the pandemic had thrown them into. Either way, people were now streaming, drawing, editing videos, writing fanfics, and making music to both distract themselves from the world outside and make some damn good stuff in the process to entertain people. But the thing about content creation is that doing it by yourself is not that fun. Thankfully, these new creators is now sprouting out as a result of the pandemic sure did like to talk about it and create spaces where other like-minded individuals could mingle and chat about this new thing they were doing now, especially on spaces like Discord and Twitter. And with that, many people who had never tried content creation were now downloading OBS, Audacity, many different editing softwares, grabbing that old guitar their uncle had, turning on their phones, and trying their hand at content creation, and you could tell. Well, there's no real way to quantify how many people became YouTubers during COVID-19 due to the sheer size of the platform and how they store data. Twitch stats are readily available. According to TwitchTracker.com, in 2019, there were about 35,580 partners on the platform and about 125,000 concurrent live channels during February 2019. Contrast this to June 2020, where there were over 198,000 concurrent live channels, over 51,580 partners, and 2.12 million concurrent viewers site-wide. Not to mention the absolute explosion of affiliates on the platform, yours truly included. A lot of these creators also had another source of inspiration based around the sandbox game Minecraft, which had climbed itself out of the cringe territory just last year due to the immense success of SMP Live, memes, and the 10th anniversary of the game. Around this time, a certain green blockman would rise to extreme popularity and bring a lot of people alongside him. You all know him. Dream, who had started making content consistently during 2019, started blowing up around the early point of 2020 with his Minecraft Manhunt series. His growth was the start of modern Minecraft YouTube, or as people like to usually call it, MCYT. Many young fans were attracted to Dream and the creators around him, such as others on the Dream SMP like TommyInnit or Tubbo, and many of those young fans were inspired to make the same type of content that they did. As well, the immense popularity of the short-form video sharing site TikTok continued into the pandemic, with many finding the short videos easy to doom scroll through. It was super easy to make content on TikTok. Just click on the record button and you're off making whatever type of content you wanted. Dance videos, review videos, random trends, Minecraft content, basically whatever you wanted to create on the app, allowing so many different ideas to spread quickly and easily. And other social media sites clearly took note, most notably YouTube and Instagram, launching shorts and reels in September and August respectively. And in terms of games, nothing really topped the absolute explosion of Intersoft's Among Us, which originally launched in 2019 to very little fanfare before being picked up by multiple content creators during the lockdown, and that led to its massive spike in popularity during that time. It was really easy to pick up and play, you could get a bunch of people into a lobby for a quick game, and it was really easy to make jokes out of. It's that second point that's most important to me. You can get a bunch of people, and it didn't just have to be specifically content creators online. It could be anyone like, AOC, a representative of the 14th Congressional District of New York. Wild fucking statement to come out of my mouth, dude, in hindsight especially. As a side effect of Among Us's humongous popularity, group games would begin to blow up during the pandemic, essentially replacing events like family game nights. I already touched on Among Us and Minecraft, but other games based around getting groups together, such as Phasmophobia and Jackbox, were catapulted to the spotlight when lockdown was implemented in March, and with platforms like Discord and Zoom allowing for quick collaboration between people in different places, collaborating with fellow creators in games like these was super easy. Just shoot out a ping in a Discord server, join a call, and joke with the guys. And with Jackbox, you could even get the audience to join in with you, creating a sense of connection between creator and viewer. Simply put, content creation just became easier for many people to just try out. Many were just melting away at their computer or phone screen saddened and lonely, or they were becoming a part of a fan base that accepted them, finally giving them the connections that they needed for these content creators. Either that or they were just doing that exact thing for so many people just like them, and inspiring people to do the same. Whether you like them or not, these people brought many people together during a time when we desperately needed that. That is pretty awesome. Now, creators wouldn't have the platform without the fans to create it, and the way fans acted and how they felt around creators started to change. Well, before, fans and creators kind of had like a metaphorical glass pane in between them and they just called themselves fans, these new content creator enjoyers had a new name for themselves: stans. Throughout 2020 and 2021, you couldn't go on Twitter, or anywhere on the internet for that matter, without hearing about what this group of stans did, what this group of stans did. The term stan became synonymous with the viewers of content creators who were super obsessed with a creator during this pandemic and beyond. And to be honest, who could really blame them? They're stuck in a room with no one else they could really talk to besides their families or their roommates, and for so many of them, these creators and their fan bases created a safe space where their homes just straight up couldn't. And especially on sites like Twitch, where forming a parasocial relationship to a streamer was pretty easy, all things considered. So becoming a stan isn't really out of the question, to be really honest with you. But that's not to say that these stans didn't get themselves into controversy, and believe me, they did. But this is not a video about stans and stan culture. So, now we've got this massive group of brand new content creators trying out this wild thing that many of them have been dreaming of doing since they were young. And the world at large was now watching, seeing their exploits and either getting invested or getting inspired. But now that it's been almost 5 years since then, where are some of these new creators now? Looking at how the pandemic broadly changed content creation would disregard the individual changes that these new creators made to themselves as people to become who they are today. As a result, I grabbed a large group of content creators that I know and interviewed them about how their lives got flipped, turned upside down, not only by the pandemic, but also by this new thing they started doing. Loneliness was a common thing I heard during the interviews I had with the creators I was able to get a hold of. Not too hard to see why, obviously. We're all locked inside with no one but our roommates, family, or ourselves, and content creation and the internet in general gave people an opportunity to satiate that need for human interaction, even if it was behind a screen.
When I started content creation, that was not something I considered. I started content creation as a way to deal with the loneliness that came from dealing with the pandemic and being locked inside for months on end, as well as it being something that I've always had an interest in pursuing regardless, but the success of it was never something that I considered at the time.
I was a single mum who's working full-time as a mother to look after my 3-year-old son. And all of my friends had jobs, and I had nobody to talk to in the sort of few hours after he'd gone to bed. And I played a lot of Minecraft while I was sort of doing nothing, and I was going insane having no one to talk to.
According to a study conducted by the Cambridge University Press in October of 2020, which polled 2,077 adults from the UK, suicidal ideation and attempts spiked during the pandemic. And of course it did. Humans, by nature, are social creatures. We've evolved that way to survive. Social interaction is the lifeblood of humanity, and as the pandemic essentially cut off that blood flow of physical human interaction, many people started to spiral into a dark place. And that's where interaction from talking to fans and creators online comes into play. Online interaction with fellow humans can't really hit the same as a good talk with someone at a cafe during golden hour, but you can still create a meaningful experience with people online. And these creators and their fan bases were able to help facilitate that. These creators were also obviously struggling with the exact same problem, but were usually pushing through it for many different reasons. Another thing I heard during the interviews, and something I could personally relate to, was the opportunity of having nothing on your plate.
I had originally planned to only start streaming after I graduated high school, but the pandemic happened and it made me start earlier than intended as something to do during lockdown to fill time. It gave me the push I really needed, and I'm really, really glad I started when I did.
For me, I was in school, secondary school in Britain, and yeah, there was not much happening outside other than pandemic, and also you have final exams coming up. So that was what is happening to me.
For me, it wasn't just the pandemic. It actually gave me an opportunity through graduating high school to actually have the free time to be able to make videos. Initially, I dabbled with streaming, but honestly, it's just not for me on a long term. I find myself having more control over my videos, ends up making a better result in the end.
Content creation is extremely hard to balance with real life school and with work. And with all of those things going online anyway, it became 10 times easier to just finish up your online school Zoom class and open up OBS. Or you could just not pay attention during online class and be secretly working on a video or planning out a stream or editing. Online meetings at work? Nah, man, I'm working on my next banger of a video right now. Can you actually meet up real fast? Many of the creators that I interviewed were quite young when they started, so they were most likely in school around that time. And online school was, quite bluntly, extremely easy to cheat and skip, so these creators could finally get into this dream of theirs that they've had for years.
I think COVID just made it easier for me to slack off in school and not get found out.
Same.
Which gave me more time to make videos and so on. Because obviously, like, the culture I grew up in, making videos, obviously, and for a lot of people, maybe now it's going to start being different as people see the value of digital media, but like making videos or fooling around online wasn't really seen as productive by any of our parents. So a lot of us had to like do it in secret, at least for the beginning. It being COVID and online classes just, just made me be able to be on my PC for longer without my parents being suspicious when I was like 15, 16.
I think it was just a time when so many people were watching, and I was in a pretty lucky position where I benefited from it. Like, it didn't make school worse for me. It just gave me a ton of time to work on YouTube. And I think that, coupled with the fact that Minecraft had a resurgence and everyone was watching YouTube, made it a lot easier to blow up.
Now, all the creators that I interviewed for this video were from the MCYT genre, and as such, many of them were obviously jumping in due to inspiration from many creators on the Dream SMP, many of whom were their age. It formed a somewhat of a connection between those new creators and the younger people on the Dream SMP, and it gave them the belief that if it pushed as hard as those people did, they could be at the same level as them.
Rambo was the big one. Rambo was the big one with TikTok, where when Rambo initially first started blowing up, making his like I'm tall videos, those like early days videos, and then started blowing up because of that. That initially was sort of when I was like, you know what, let me give it a try. Because especially at that point in my life, I had a big thing where I didn't like change, and I would always pass up opportunities because I would be negative to change. And at that point in time, I remember seeing the Rambo videos and being like, you're not supposed to make Minecraft videos off of TikTok. That's dumb. Why would anyone do that? That's not how you do it. And then that was something I was trying to work on at the time, is being less judgmental with that kind of stuff and like trying to see new opportunities that were there instead of just closing them down immediately. And I went, hold on. I know this is something that isn't normally how it's done, but maybe this is a cool change in the right direction. Maybe I should give this a shot instead of being so dismissive about it.
Tommy Innit, Rambo, and Tubbo in particular had the most impact on this idea. Many of us were about a year older or younger than those three, and a good amount of us saw them as a mirror of what many of us could have been. And I can attest, I always thought that these three's impact on content creation at the time was an absolute godsend. I had always wanted people my age to get into content creation, and I felt this would be the perfect opportunity for them to finally do it, and for me to have peers in my age group. Bad mindset in hindsight, but I was like 15. Leave me alone. Speaking of hindsight, that's something I brought up here in the questions as well, that I sent to each creator. It's now been 5 years since we first locked down, and many of us were in high school during that time. And surprise, surprise, most of us aren't in high school anymore.
Well, I think that I'm better. I think that there's still room for improvement. I will say that. I think what I'm really focusing on right now is trying to find a balance of like expressing like me as like a person instead of just like another, you know, oh, I made a Minecraft SMP video. LOL. Like, you know, I want to develop some sort of personality. And unfortunately, the Among Us jokes sometimes don't make the cut. Most of the time they do, though, will not lie, but it's still only funny to me, but you know, I still do it anyways.
Well, I think just like as like a 16-year-old, I was more annoying because obviously I was a 16-year-old back then, but now I have so much more confidence, which means I can be so much more annoying because I'm not scared of like everyone hating me for being annoying as much.
I feel a lot more confident in my capabilities, especially when I was like younger and started getting into like bigger spaces. I was anxious as could be. And like I said, when I first started, I was so cringe because when you're 15, you're gonna be cringe. You're gonna be cringe because you are 15 years of age. I'm still cringe and I'm 19. Like, don't ask people what I've said in the MVCs because I speak in exclusively brain rot, but I'm much more confident in my abilities, less anxious about it because like before I would get so nervous about something going wrong. And every time I streamed, it was such an anxiety-inducing thing. Now it's just like, I'm doing this. If I mess up anything, if the stream crashes, it's out of my control. It's a whatever thing.
This point applies a lot to the stands and fan bases of creators during this time, especially as those stands grew out of those creators. But the creators especially have to grapple with the pressure of being young and in the spotlight all the time, which resulted in conflicts. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, a lot of those creators had a different outlook on things that happened during COVID. Hearing these things about the pandemic and content creation gives a lot of context to the mindsets of these people and how they grapple with the lockdown. And in particular, it's interesting to hear these creators talk about who they used to be in contrast to who they would end up becoming. I briefly touched on the mental states of these creators, but I think it's important to take a deeper look into how all of this changed the mental state of people. While the lockdown gave many people the time and opportunity to do whatever they wanted online, that same freedom of being online all the time was extremely debilitating. As has been proven 100 times, and as I briefly touched on in this video, humans are social creatures. IRL interaction is extremely important to us. The best parts of life we as humans experience are when we go out for events, meet people at say our workplaces, or when we're just at the right place at the right time. Prior to the pandemic, the lives of humans kind of circled around interactions in the real world, i.e. with other people in person. And while many people, myself included, have friends they met online, it was common that these individuals would find themselves wanting to meet said friends in person, be it just like randomly meeting in a town or meeting at a convention. It would probably be super expensive, but they would go through with it. That's my friend, I want to go meet that person. Lockdown, however, would put an end to that. And circling back, what about those friends you had during school and work? Friends you only saw in the hallways or in the cubicles or past the coffee machine. Those guys are at home now. The office is closed and you're stuck at home. The school's closed and you're in online class on Zoom. What if the presence of those friends was really, really important to you? Now what do? You could Zoom them, but like, as previously established, it won't hit the same. Now you've got a downward spiral of mental health that's opening to swallow you whole, and there's no real end to it in sight. With that in mind, is it really any surprise that these people that are stuck inside, especially from school, that are quite young, will begin to stand creators during the lockdown? In hindsight, no. And since so much of the population was now stuck online, and since these new creators were providing entertainment during the lockdown, the amount of new eyes on them was immense. The growth that these creators experienced was absolutely humongous and happened in the blink of an eye. Creators on YouTube, Twitch, and especially TikTok were catapulted into the spotlight, and at a time where they probably weren't fully ready yet, or when they didn't fully comprehend the gravity of their newfound influence on the world. And the new fan base that these creators got as a result of that were completely different in comparison to what the average fan base looked like long ago. The archetype of stans in the 2020s was heavily modeled and influenced by the K-pop stans of 2019, and that overbearing parasocial possessive feeling continued during lockdown. And again, lockdown was probably the only spot where these fans could find connections with people, so being a stan isn't truly out of the question, and it kind of answers a couple other questions, but the way these stands acted back then was overbearing for a lot of the creators blowing up during that point in time. The connection with online creators that fans formed as a result of lockdown was extremely strong, to the point that many fans began to form parasocial relationships with the streamers and YouTubers that they used to watch. A prominent example of these types of parasocial relationships, hell, the poster child for this type of behavior, was the Dream SMP fandom in late 2020 and 2021. When I talked about stans earlier in this video, your brain probably went to them, because they are like the most well-known stan community on Twitter, second only to K-pop stans. The possessiveness that these fans exhibited led not only to a lot of infighting between community members when their streamer did something wrong, but also a lot of fighting between fan bases. An example that comes to mind for me, and probably you if you're extremely chronically online, is the whole fiasco with TechnoTwit in 2021, but it also applies to J/RAM around the same time. With the closeness that the pandemic gave to these fandoms towards their favorite creators, eventually something will be made for a creator that went against boundaries or just against common sense. And the creators involved would usually have to do a serious stream or a segment of a stream where they would have to denounce the things that their fanbase did.
Like sex-related fanfic, whatever that is on the Wattpad or on Twitter, I am not comfortable with that, and I do not endorse it. I just thought I'd have to say. I thought it would have been obvious because I'm a child, but I thought I'd just let you all know.
On occasion, it'd get to the point where creators would have to begin to change their personality to something completely different in order to push that old fandom away in favor of a fanbase that wouldn't do that type of thing. A prime example that comes to mind is, once again, Schlatt, who would mark his return to streaming by banning every single Dream SMP account on Twitch in his chat, thereby removing a fanbase he didn't really like. And you know, it's easy to get caught up in all the weird shit that happened to creators during lockdown and go, wow, look at these weirdos, bro, what the fuck? But it's also really easy to see their growth and change throughout the years. I brought up Schlatt as an example of not being beholden to a community that you used to be in, and that concept still applies to stans from 2020, at least to the ones who tried to grow up and change. Many of these guys were like under 15, or like same age as the creators they stan, and while that doesn't excuse their behavior, these experiences would shape them into someone completely different from who they used to be. There's a non-zero chance that a Dream SMP stan is watching this, and maybe they're off at university getting some really cool degree. Maybe they're a doctor now. Maybe they graduated valedictorian, top of their class. You're not beholden to who you used to be. Oh, and hey, did you notice that a lot of people ended up coming out during the pandemic? Well, a lot of the fan spaces that these people happened to be in were filled with people of different sexualities, and these people's experiences with finding out they were some type of queer inspired some people to look inside themselves and see if their experiences match those, and turns out, yeah. And you know, what about mental health struggles? Many people started to publicize and talk about how they are struggling with mental health throughout the pandemic, and that was able to give comfort to so many different people, both creators and fandom. I feel as though this applies to most of the internet, especially during lockdown, but online fan bases and community spaces are where these people will become massive inspirations to many others in their respective fan base. So, where do we go now? We're nearing the end of the lockdown. What are the scars?
Something that was in the back of my mind while making this video was what I refer to as the $1 million question. If we went into another lockdown, would the same things happen? Would a new influx of content creators come in and change the online world? And throughout this video and so many interviews I've gotten, I think I've finally gotten an answer. And in retrospect, it's a little obvious now, but it's that it still depends. I'm leaning towards no, but for good reason. 2020's lockdown and the subsequent influx of new content creators that came onto the scene was such a lightning in a bottle moment. The early days were filled with an optimism of a new spring break that we didn't think we were going to get. And by the end, we were just kind of begging for it to be over. That early optimism gave so many people who wanted to be content creators the energy and strength to actually do it. And then by the end, most of them just acknowledged that it was a hobby they picked up to normalize themselves during the lockdown. And you know, hopefully we won't go through another lockdown. Both of the two viruses that gave people a shivering feeling of the lockdown by the time I was writing this are not that big of a risk to humans just yet. Hopefully it'll stay that way if governments will handle those viruses with the amount of care that they deserve. But we'll have to see. It has now been 5 years since the initial lockdowns in March. And for many of the creators who started back then, their legacy is now somewhat enshrined in history as a massive group of people who finally decided to try something they've always wanted to try. And I do hope those people are now living their best lives offline. All right, well, that's something. Thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. It has taken me 4 years from conception to completion, so I would appreciate you subscribing and maybe liking if you did enjoy watching it. I got a couple of people I need to quickly thank before we get to plugging me. So big ups and thank you to Bawa Bones, Beppenbite, Saronic, Sebustian, Ashwag, Fanity, V Pluto, Riley Page, Puffball Cloud, Wifeys, Whale TV, Strike TV, Night Kashiku, Moxie, 2Fion, Watermunch, Honeydew Melon, That Dark Phoenix, Lumasar, Caboodle, Jason L, Bursky, Lady RL, Blop Blop, Ash Junio, Nukery, Spoopy Gamer, and Poppy Lolsies. There are a couple people I missed, I'm pretty sure, and I will probably put them up on screen, but thank you so much for answering my silly little questions or providing voiceover work. There is someone physically in the room who actually happened to handle my camera for today. Do you want to come say hello? Yeah, no, this is... I'm not wearing my glasses. You're not wearing your glasses. This is my friend Ren.
Hi, Chad.
They're probably somewhere on social media, and they're going to be helping edit things of mine from now on. So please get used to this person's face.
Yeah.
You might not, I don't know how often you're going to see them.
I'll be the goth emo wannabe.
Oh my fucking god, you can't keep saying that. If you wanted to support me and my work, you can go to ko-fi.com/meta64/TIERS to monetarily support me. If you wanted to just be in my community, you can go to dsc.gg/meta64. And I also do stream. If you like to come say hello, I'm also at that handle. I believe that's everything I need to say. Thank you for watching, and hopefully by the time this video comes out, there will not have been another lockdown or something equivalent. I'm hoping, good lord, please, I'm begging, please, 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 please,